You ever wake up one morning, stretch your back, pour yourself a hot cup of coffee, and just for a moment, before the world gets noisy again, you think, I've finally made it. This place is mine, and nobody's going to take that from me. Yeah, I did too. It was a feeling I'd earned, pouring 10 years into a piece of Colorado wilderness that most folks wouldn't even bother mapping. It was just me, the pines, and the lake, Briar Creek stretching out below, shining like a piece of blue glass set into old stone. No traffic, no sirens, no yappy dogs next door, just the sound of wind in the needles, my own hammer falling, and the smell of rain moving over cedar shakes I'd set myself, right on my birthday. You know what I mean? When the only thing you hear is the world breathing. You get used to thinking maybe you're finally safe. Safe, that is, until the HOA comes calling. I should have known. It never starts with a knock. It's always more like a parade, a diplomatic mission. If you can call 3 people marching up my gravel in matching beige with clipboards a mission, out front is Karen Brooks. I don't even have to make that name up. Stacked blonde bob, pantsuit sharp enough to cut bread, and a smile that could curdle milk. She didn't introduce herself so much as announce her presence, like royalty come to reclaim lost land. Mr. Lynch, I presume. Not a question, more like an accusation. And behind her, her own little squad, binders in hand, ready to hit me with HOA code I didn't even know existed. I just stood there, still holding my coffee, watching them like they might start singing the national anthem next. Karen was all business. We're here to discuss your recent construction and review your architectural compliance documentation. I had to laugh. You're going to need to back that up and start from reality, ma'am. My land's not even in their HOA. No shared roads, no joint mailboxes, nothing. 15 years of taxes, a signed build permit, chain of title going back to when my uncle could still write his name without shaking. I made sure they saw that you're not part of any HOA sign. Karen didn't flinch. She just snapped her binder open and started talking about visual compliance. You ever heard that one? Apparently, if the HOA can see my cabin from their side of the lake, they think they own a say in how I build, what color I stain my deck, maybe even what kind of dog I keep. I gave them 60 seconds to get off my land before I started calling it trespassing. And the way Karen's eye twitched, you'd think I'd pulled a weapon instead of a word. Still, they left, heels crunching on my gravel, making sure I knew this wasn't over. And it wasn't. 3 days later, a letter comes, gold embossed, threatening fines for noncompliance, citing rules they copied off a wine bottle. And, get this, not even using my real address. They grabbed some Zillow estimate off a map and thought it'd be enough to scare me. I just scanned it, sent it to Jenna, my attorney, the kind of woman who can tie paperwork into knots you'll never untangle. Jenna's got the calm menace of someone who's argued with generals and won. She put together a rebuttal that'd make a grown man sweat. Deed copies, tax logs, county permits, photos, the works. Mailed it all certified to Karen's HOA headquarters, which turned out to be her garage. That only made Karen double down. Next thing I know, she's at my gate with a legacy agreement, claiming my dead uncle promised the land to her son, Zach, years ago at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon. I asked if she had anything in writing. She said, intent holds legal weight. That's when I knew this was going to get ugly, and I wasn't just fighting some lady with a clipboard. I was up against the HOA Hydra. Letters started arriving, one after another, property acquisition. Notices, community votes to reclaim my land. Even a forged agreement, supposedly signed by my uncle, with signatures so bad they wouldn't fool a first grader. They posted flyers on mailboxes, called emergency meetings, plastered my name on Facebook posts. A kid I knew from the feed store even brought me a flyer, looking like he wanted to melt into the gravel. I stayed out of the meetings. But my cameras didn't. I watched them vote, watched Karen hold up her fake agreement like she was Moses, heard the murmur go through the crowd as they unanimously voted to preserve the community. But here's the thing. Truth doesn't always win, but evidence usually does. I took every letter, every flyer, every photo and video clip, logged it all, and sent it to Jenna. She filed a formal cease and desist, demanded the HOA stop harassing me and spreading forged documents. Their response? More letters, more threats, more flyers. They even tried to bribe neighborhood kids to spread their flyers for a few bucks each. That little twist stung, realizing folks were being paid to make it look like the community cared, when really, it was all one woman's grudge. That's when the story got deeper, when the twist hit. Jenna hired a private investigator, Dave Landon, a retired sheriff's deputy who could smell a scam from a mile away. Within a week, he found a whistleblower on the board willing to talk, and suddenly we had emails. Real, raw, damning stuff. Karen laying out her whole plan, telling the board to control the narrative, facts don't matter, promising the land would be hers in 30 days. She even said if I fought back, it would help their story, make me look like the problem. They planned fake environmental inspections, and sure enough, one day I caught Zach and a couple of goons on my porch pretending to be community safety officers, caught the whole thing on camera. The cops showed up before I got home. Zach tried to play tough, but when they slapped cuffs on him for trespass and attempted intimidation, the act faded quick. Jenna filed for a protective order. The judge approved it that night, and for once, the law moved faster than the rumor mill. Karen tried to spin the story online, crying about dangerous loners threatening the community. But the more she talked, the more people started to see through her act. A neighbor I barely knew, Marcia, quiet lady, always in gardening gloves, showed up with a thermos and an envelope full of HOA newsletters Karen never meant outsiders to see. The minutes, the internal memos, all talking about reclaiming my land, sending volunteer enforcement agents, and prepping for strategic redevelopment. It was right there in black and white. But you want real proof? Turns out my uncle registered the land as a conservation parcel back in '99. That meant the only way it could ever be reassigned was through a county-level process Karen had never even started. The land was double-locked, mine by inheritance, mine by law. Jenna filed suit, 70 pages thick, naming the HOA, Karen, and anyone involved in forging documents, defamation, attempted coercion, even a special claim for fraudulent simulation of public authority. Karen countersued, dragging in her son Zach, the same guy with a history of credit fraud and squatting on property that didn't belong to him. Dave dug up more dirt, emails, fake votes, plans to make me look like a squatter. Then the piece de resistance. Chat logs where Karen plotted to send Zach and his buddies in during the week, hoping I'd be out, telling them to play dumb if caught. We handed it all to the judge. Court day came. Karen arrived in pearls, acting like she was about to cut a ribbon at a charity. But by noon the only thing shining was the sweat on her brow. Jenna laid out the deeds, maps, the forensics on the forged signature. Even a handwriting expert who showed Karen's legacy agreement had been created on a laptop that didn't exist until 14 years after my uncle died. The judge was having none of Karen's verbal promise story, didn't even let her finish. The verdict? My rights affirmed, Karen and the HOA found liable, damages awarded, the forged documents referred to the DA for prosecution. But here's where the real satisfaction hit. The court ordered a full audit of the HOA's books. Within days, the board splintered. Members resigned. The treasurer made a public apology, and Karen, well, her mugshot was in the local paper under HOA president faces jail for property scheme. The community finally came together, but not to harass me. A few neighbors I'd never spoken to showed up with lumber and beer, offered to help build a new dock, fix up the place. For the first time in months, I laughed for real. Now, the land is clean again, with a sign at my gate I carved by hand, 10 years in the making. Folks took pictures. The story went viral. Online, people wrote from other counties saying my case helped them stop their own HOAs from pulling the same stunts. Zach disappeared. Last I heard, he was working at a ski shop, and I hope he learns something about honest work. Karen, well, she's spending 6 months behind bars. And me? I keep building, not out of fear anymore, but because it's what I love. The cameras are still up, but nobody comes down that road unless they're invited. So now, let me ask you, where do you draw the line between community and control? Is justice just about winning in court, or is it about building something that lasts, in spite of all the noise? Tell me, have you ever fought for what's yours, and did you win? Drop your story below. I want to hear where you stand, because sometimes, the only way to protect what you love is to build it with your own hands and never back down.